welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 5, but more than that, it is the official Star Wars podcast day. So we wanted to let you know that today is the 25th anniversary of the very first Star Wars podcast, Jedi Talk, which premiered today in 1999. Now, we're complete newbies at this. We've been at this for 5 seasons, as we said, which to us is still a shock.
A lot longer than I thought it was gonna go, and hopefully, maybe not 25 years, but hopefully a couple more years to go.
I think we're doing pretty well.
I think so too.
So as part of the official Star Wars podcast day, we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves because we might get some new people around. So we're both Puerto Ricans. We've been friends for
Hmm.
decades. We talked about wanting to talk about Star Wars for years and never really did anything about it until COVID, as would happen, I think, with a lot of podcasters that they found themselves at home with nothing to
Yep,
do. And it's like, let's talk about the things that we love. So,
and I
welcome to
think
the
that's the key.
channel.
That's the key. Talk about the
Yeah,
thing that we love.
that we love, not criticize, yeah, to
Hmm.
no end without being productive, because we do criticize, but productively.
Yeah,
So that's a little bit about us. About us. So you can like, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know if you're just finding us. But other than that, we really wanted to dedicate today's episode to the late, the great Carl Weathers, who we lost a couple days ago on February 1st, if I'm correct.
yes, you're correct. Yep.
So we kind of wanted to do a little bit of an homage to somebody that we've loved in
Hmm.
a bunch of other franchises aside from Star Wars, because he's been in so many things. But before we get to that, Goose kind of told me that there was some important legal Star Wars news.
Yeah,
Told
yeah.
me not to look at it because I'm terrible at,
No, no, don't look at it. No, no. Although I did want to say, like 25 years. I mean, so that means that podcast Jedi Talk started like in anticipation, I guess, for the Phantom Menace, because Phantom Menace also came out in
yeah,
1999,
that is
which was
correct.
what an amazing year. We got the Matrix, we got the Phantom Menace, we got the
You're
first
right.
Star Wars podcast. What a great year
It was.
to be alive. I remember it. I remember that was good. I was very hyped for that. Uh, and yeah, and now look at us. Look at us.
And now look at us
We've
having
gone a
our
long
own little
way.
podcast.
We've gone a long way. We've gone a long way from Star
Not
Wars
so
Celebration
little.
Orlando.
We've been panelists at
Ah,
Celebration.
that's
So,
true. That is true. From one celebration in Orlando where it was just a disaster and it almost didn't get into any panel, starting
right.
quasi riots, to now, yeah, doing this for us. Fifth
Going
season.
to premieres.
Please invite us to the Acolyte. Please,
Please.
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 We just need to go.
Please. Please.
But yeah, holy crap, season 5. Some people got dogs during during COVID. We
We got a
made up.
podcast.
We got a podcast. That feels like the Matt Damon movie. We got a zoo. So instead of a zoo, we just got a podcast.
Oh my god.
I guess a podcast is better than a zoo. Less upkeep, cheaper,
Let's poop.
a lot less poop. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this news because I think it's pathetic news, and it's just came out today. So I would be remiss if we didn't really talk about it, because
Hmm.
there's not a lot of Star Wars news for now, until like Bad Batch comes out
Bad Batch comes
or
out and
anything
everything.
else
Yeah.
is announced. Obviously we have the tragic news of Carl Weathers passing, but before we
Yeah.
get into like happy celebratory things, let's go into pathetic things that are actually tangentially connected to Carl Weathers, because it's
Oh no.
Mandalorian focused. And let's just put it this way: this was a lawsuit that was filed in the United States District Court in the Central District of California. And I'm not going to tell you who the plaintiff is. I'm going to read what's it called, the complaint,
Right.
before telling you who the plaintiff is, to see if you can guess who the plaintiff is. But the defendant is the Walt Disney Company, Lucasfilm Limited LLC, and Huckleberry Industries Inc. And the complaint starts. No, if I read it, you're gonna no, obviously. I'm gonna go with the introduction to the lawsuit. The introduction to the lawsuit. It's so cringe. You you're gonna cringe throughout the whole thing. A short time ago, in a galaxy not so far away,
Oh God,
defendants
no.
made it clear that only one orthodoxy in thought, speech, or action was acceptable in their empire, and that those who dared to question or failed to fully comply would not be tolerated. And so it was with Redacted. After two highly acclaimed seasons of The Mandalorian, as Rebel Ranger Redacted
Oh
Redacted
God.
was terminated from her role as swiftly as her
Of course
character's
I know who
peaceful
it is.
home planet of Alderaan had been destroyed by the Death Star in an earlier Star Wars film. And all of this because she dared voice her own opinions on social media platforms and elsewhere, and stood up to the online bully mob who demanded her compliance with their extreme progressive ideology. Obviously, it keeps going on. I can't keep going on. It's only two more paragraphs. I'm just gonna
Oh
keep
my
going on to
God.
see.
Oh,
Defendants' wrath over their employees' social media posts also differed depending on sex. Even though, quote, the force is female, end quote, defendants chose to target a woman while looking the other way when it came to men. While Redacted was fired, defendants took no action against male actors who took equally or more vigorous and controversial positions on social media, but the rule of law still reigns over the defendant's empire, and Redacted has returned to demand that they be held accountable for their bullying, discriminatory, and retaliatory actions. Actions that inflicted not only substantial emotional harm, but millions of dollars in lost income. Who do you think that was about? Obviously, we know, but
are we naming names now?
I
Because
don't think we're
she
gonna
was
name.
unmentionable for a
We won't
while.
mention she who must not be named by name, but we
Right.
will mention the character's name, the
We can
actor who formerly portrayed
Cara
Cara
Dune.
Dune. It's interesting. You should read the
Wow.
whole thing because it's so absurd. It's such an absurd lawsuit that I'm sure that all the lawyers at Disney are having a field day with it. They must be laughing their asses off
I
at
mean, the
this.
whole thing is kind of a joke. You start the whole complaint with an analogy of Star Wars lore. It's like it's not a real.
Here's the kicker.
uh,
Here's why. The person who is bankrolling this person's lawsuit is Elon Musk.
Of course it is. Of oh God.
So
What is this?
to add layers upon layers of absurdity. But it's one of the interesting things, though. I read most of the lawsuit like while I was on my commute home, and I think one of the interesting things here is that what to say? Oh, millions of dollars in lost income. But then when you go into the damages portion, like more or less towards the end, she's like asking for like $75,000 in restitution. And one of the things that I found even more hilarious is, oh, demanding from Disney slash Lucasfilm to recast her as the character and give her like the restitution for the X amount. And I was like, wait, why would you want to go back to the employer that doesn't want you?
Right.
That's so sad and pathetic. It's like, is
That you're
your
suing. I mean, you're
right?
suing
I
them
thought
because
I
of
I thought these people said go woke, go broke. So you want to be broke then? It's like then don't go back to Star Wars if it's so woke and you can't handle it. It's just like get out of here. What do you think as a almost lawyer? You're almost there. We're graduating this year. How did that feel? Now that you're actually
that
reading real cases because you're working, what's the verdict, Your Honor?
that is ridiculous. That is one of the most ridiculous complaints I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, it sounds like something out of TV and not something that's real. Let's just start with that. And that, I mean, it's California, so maybe I haven't really read a lot of California case law, and it's in Hollywood, so maybe you can get away with this kind of crap. But it sounds like it was written for a script.
I
It
mean,
doesn't really sound like like a civil complaint. Um,
like I'm sure like everyone knows that Disney lawyers are notorious for their ironclad contracts and all this stuff. So I'm
yeah,
sure that her
yeah.
contract when they hire her like has some. I'm not gonna say good faith clause because maybe
But
that
it will
doesn't
have
qualify
something.
that,
It
but
will They wouldn't have fired her without going through the fine print.
right, they must. And
So, trust me, there were like 50 lawyers in a room going over that contract with, pincers to
mhm,
make sure that what they were doing was according to the law
right,
and to the terms of the contract, because that's, a contract is the law of the contract is the contract.
Mhm.
And as soon as both parties agree to it, that becomes the law of the relationship between both
Mhm.
parties. So, I mean, and again, I have to specify that I specialize in criminal, not civil. So this isn't
Ah,
really my
tomato,
area.
potato, it's all the same.
But the
Well, the
thing
law
sounds
is the law.
completely ridiculous. And then she complains about like that she got fired because of her views of being woke, but then she invokes the fact that it's because she's a woman. So like, o te
Right, which
peinas o te
is it?
haces rolo.
Right, which is it?
Pick one. O sea, are you going for the, oh, I'm discriminated against because I'm a woman, which does happen in Hollywood all the time.
Very
I'm
much
not going to
so,
take that
yes.
away. Or it's because I'm a crazy bigot with a lot of really backwards views that posts it constantly. Like
Mhm.
which side? I don't know.
Like you said, like, how would you translate te peina o te haces rolo in English?
Mhm.
Either comb your hair or you get your curling iron, something like
Either
that?
straighten it or curl it. You can't do both. I think
That's
that might.
you translated it way too clean. I wanted something that's a little more messy. That was clean. That was actually good. I guess it gets the point across. I'm trying
Yeah,
to be like super messy. It's like, see, idioms don't translate, but I guess you can.
yeah, mm,
So yeah, that was fun. Maybe I'll send you and Husbando the why is the camera getting out of focus? The lawsuit so that you guys can read it and then there we go. And then make your hilarious conclusions of it. But yeah, that happened. And I thought it was a little bit of a funny Star Wars news or Star Wars adjacent news
yeah,
to talk about before going into something a little more somber, but more of a
yeah.
celebration of this person of Carl Weathers, who very unexpectedly passed away like a couple days ago. It was a surprise that took everyone uh, by surprise. That's redundant. Uh,
But
January
it's true because it was that surprising.
and he wasn't, dude. He wasn't like, he wasn't that old. He was just like in his mid 70s, uh,
And he looked good. Él
and
estaba
he
entero.
he was looked good, fit,
Yeah,
looked
yeah,
healthy, vigorous, energetic. So that it goes to show. I'm getting very existential lately, so this doesn't really help. It's like the older I
right.
get, the more I see older people as young. So I was just like, oh, no, this is a young guy.
Yep.
So yeah, it took me by surprise because yeah, it's you don't expect to see people just leave us and like that. So it's definitely like a shock to be sure. Uh,
Especially someone who's been around since we were kids. Like I
yeah,
still
yeah.
remember him as Apollo Creed, the Rocky movies, and always thinking that he was just incredibly awesome. And then seeing him come into Star Wars like late in his life in this amazing character of Greef Karga,
Hmm.
and then suddenly he's gone. I, what? It was just yeah.
Yeah, it's rest in peace, rest in power. But one of the things that I think I'll always think about when I think about Carl Weathers is not just the great characters that he has given us by his portrayals, but also the great positive energy that he was as a person. From what we could see, like I was very lucky to see him like a couple of Star Wars celebrations, and just to see like his enthusiasm for what he's doing and his energy for life it's infectious. And also his social media presence was kind of a beautiful thing in a way, because he would always make very positive, uplifting uh, Twitter posts and things like that that were, kind of nice to look at, and always did good for the most part political commentary, calling out, bigotry, racism, and all those things that
Right.
we stand against. So definitely an ally in that department. But he would always sign his tweets with the hashtag #BPeace. And I
Aw.
think that's the thing that I'll always remember about Carl Weathers is like his advocacy just to, you know, be at peace and be peaceful with everybody and to not just be at peace, but to be it yourself,
B. Yeah.
which I think is kind of a really good mantra to have now, especially not just because it's a good mantra, but especially to just keep alive in his honor. And this episode will be called Be Peace because if we're going to remember someone for who they were in life, it
Yeah.
should be for the light that they shone. And I think that peace is kind of the brightest light that there is, probably.
I didn't know that because my social media game is very weak, very weak. So I didn't know that. Oh, I love that. Be peace.
Now you know. Now you know.
Mm, now you know.
Carl Weathers. But yeah,
Right.
it's interesting because to be honest, as a mainly a Star Wars fan, and I don't know how if for you it's kind of the same thing. Like it's not that I'm not aware of other actors and their filmography and all these things, but let's just to put it bluntly, I don't care that much about them. it's more it's more when they come into the Star Wars stratosphere that I'm a little more
Mhm,
engaged with them. I feel
mhm.
like that's how I am with particularly with social media. I'm just like, I'm not really gonna follow you. I mean, I dig it. I'll watch your movies and all
Yeah,
that
but
stuff,
you're
but
not a Star Wars person, so
I don't really need to be
yeah.
knowing what you're doing every day unless then you're in my franchise, and then he's like, okay, now I kind of need
No,
to
you're one of my peoples.
now you're one of my picks. Exactly. Now you're one of the real ones. So it was with Carl Weathers. Uh, Definitely, remember I remembered him more not the Creed films. I
I'm
remember him
gonna
more
guess
from
Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore.
no, no,
No,
I actually didn't. That wasn't the movie that I was into. 80s. Go back to the 80s.
Predator.
Yes. Dylan, you son of a bitch. That that scene with him and Schwarzenegger,
Yeah,
I'm just like,
yeah,
ah man, this is the man.
yeah.
That's my Carl Weathers.
I mean, it's actually awesome because he was in films with like the two biggest action stars of the '80s, who were kind of always
Hmm.
being rivals to each other. So Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was like the buddy of like both these guys. It's
Yep.
it's kind of insane.
I mean, I think it speaks to the character, right?
Yeah,
Of
obviously. Yeah,
Carl Weathers that he's just
yeah,
like, I'm not gonna beef with anybody. I'm just gonna be friends with everybody. I'm gonna be
yeah,
peace. Uh,
yeah,
but that's one of the things that then I really grew to respect about him. Is just him, yeah, being this caricature like Stallone and Schwarzenegger were of like hyper masculinity of the
yeah,
80s to then kind of come into the 90s and early 2000s and kind of subvert himself and make fun of himself, right? Because yeah, Happy Gilmore, ridiculous
yeah,
character that he plays.
yeah,
But for
yeah,
me, it was really like Arrested Development, where like I got reintroduced to Carl
yeah.
Weathers and his like hilarious portrayal of a fictionalized version of himself that I thought was
Yeah.
so good. That was like the second coming of Carl Weathers in my
It's
life.
like- oh man. I mean, he was also kind of a caricature of himself in the Toy Story movies.
He was wait, he was in the Toy Story movies? Who was
Yeah,
he
he
in
was
Toy
the voice of like the combat dude.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I love it.
So it was kind of like caricature of his Predator character. So I mean, it's
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Love to see it.
yeah,
See, there's levels of nuance. Levels of
yeah. I
nuance.
mean, what is best about? I mean, it's been decades in the past, and people are kind of like embarrassed of roles they did before. It's like you have
Mhm.
to embrace it,
Embrace it.
and
Have fun.
when you not only embrace it, but like take part in the kind of mocking at it, you also like homage yourself
Yeah,
as you make fun of
absolutely.
yourself, and it makes you like, in my opinion, such a more likable person in
Yep.
general.
Absolutely. And to that point, I think one of the really cool things, and I hadn't really thought about it in this way until you mentioned that perspective about, kind of making fun of your past self, is that in a way, Grief Karga is kind of, I don't want to say a commentary of Carl Weathers' career because I don't think that was the intention
Yeah,
of the character, but let's call it a muddy reflection in a way because Grief Karga, disgraced high magistrate, so like
yeah,
I don't want to say
down
that
in
Carl Weathers had a disgraced career, but let's say his high point was not
yeah,
when Mandalorian started, and like he had
yeah,
like his 80s heyday, and then kind of things I think
kind of slowed down a
slowed
little
down,
bit. Yeah,
and then found his footing again into this world of the Mandalorian rise to power, so to speak, in the same way that Grief Karga became. For the
Yeah.
lead, like from this great magistrate to leader of the bounty hunting guild in Navarro to then like the high magistrate of Navarro again. So
Yeah.
I feel like in a way, Greef Karga is like that parallel of Carl Weathers in
I
beautiful
like that.
fashion, right?
Mhm.
And and Greef Karga is Carl Weathers. He's our high magistrate, and it'll be very sad to like not see him return for the future of the Mandalorian because he is as essential to the Mandalorian as the Mandalorian himself.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he was right there from episode 1. He's the
Yes.
one that kind of got him into the journey with Grogu because it was him that, got him that job, and then he was like such a major character.
Hmm. And one
And
of the ones that have had the biggest character arcs.
yeah, because yeah, there's a lot of character development there. You thought when the show first started that we were done. Like after um Din Djarin tries to, leave and kind of betrays the Hunters Guild, that
Hmm.
we're kind of done with Greek Karga because he was like, the boss in the town and he was betrayed and that's it. But then there so many things continue to happen and you can see how somebody that should have lost all hope because they're already disgraced. What do I care? I care about greed. I care about my position. That's it. How he was able to become this freedom fighter
Hmm.
too,
Hmm.
and to be one of the main influences that actually helped Din Djarin's evolution as well. So I mean, he was a very very well done character, excellently played by Carl Weathers.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm gonna be very sad because we know that we're always gonna keep going back to the Mandalorian, and not to have him be there
Yeah.
is gonna hurt when
And it's one of
yeah
those things like we're talking about the legacy of Carl Weathers, and it's one of those things where I feel sometimes a discourse around someone's death gets a little muddy because then people get distracted with the whole what's going to happen to this character now that this person has passed
yeah
away, which I mean, sure, we're all wondering,
mhm,
and we'll speculate here as well. But it kind of distracts from the legacy itself, just like
right,
the
when you're just
future.
worrying about the future of
The
a
future's the future, right?
fictional
It
character.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter. But the
yeah,
past is what matters in this case because we have to celebrate the person who's not there, not the character that might be.
yeah,
Uh but Grief Karga, what a excellent character. Since the first minute he arrived on screen, Carl Weathers had such gravitas, right? And with his voice and his presence, it was such a wonderfully executed character to introduce us to the world of the bounty hunting guild when he's just negotiating with Din Djarin, who at the time was only Mando. And that,
right.
what a great little nickname. How he just said
Mando.
Mando.
Yeah,
Oh, so good.
and it's
No,
stuck forever.
that Carl Weathers voice was the perfect delivery. But I think one of the important things that might get lost when we're talking about Carl Weathers' portrayal is like how very humorous he also is with the material. I mean, he's got some of the funniest lines in all of the seasons of The Mandalorian, and it's just so good. I mean, everyone knows what line I'm talking about, but the whole like do the magic hand thing, such a perfectly delivered line. It's very, now that I think about it, yeah, it's very 80s action movie. Like, here's
Yeah,
my one liner, and it's gonna be
yeah,
hilarious. And he crushed it. And it's one of those immortal Mandalorian quotes that everyone knows. And now, even more so than before, it's gonna live in infamy just because of Carl
yeah,
Weathers' perfect delivery.
yeah. And I really wasn't expecting him to be in Star Wars. You know what I mean?
No,
I,
absolutely not.
you see that first episode, and it's like, wait, I recognize him. Where do I recognize him from? Wait, oh my God, it's Apollo Creed in Star Wars, and he's excelling.
I think Mandalorian has been the craziest show in that regard, I guess, of like bringing the most like unusual, not unusual, but the most unexpected people into the Star Wars universe. I mean, yeah, sure, Carl Weathers, but then you also have, oh my, I forgot Cobb Vance's name, Timothy Oliphant. You got
Yeah,
Jack Black. You got,
yeah.
I almost gonna say Dua Lipa, not Dua Lipa. What's her face? Oh my god.
I forget her name. I'm sorry.
I'm not into that world of music. I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
everyone
I'm
knows what I'm
terrible.
talking about.
Yeah,
Christopher Lloyd, it's an overload
Christopher Floyd.
of so many like different character actors that you're just like, what? Like, what are you even doing here? Some work a little better than others. We're not gonna, talk about the ones that didn't work today, but Carl Weathers is definitely one that was like incredible, and his progression past season one was also excellent. I mean, I think season two was a little. He wasn't absent from the season. Obviously, he helps Mando with the infiltration on the Imperial
Yeah,
base, but I think season three is where he kind of shines the most,
yeah, yeah.
especially when he's having all those interactions with the pirate crew and how they're like, "Oh, you've gone soft because now you're a High Magistrate," and he just delivers
I
that
mean, it's
awesome
hilarious
line,
because he has like this like giant cape that's like being
Ah,
moved by the
the
droid. So he's
droids,
like,
yeah, so
so he's
good.
like at the top of like just completely useless, you know, extravagance. And at the
Mhm.
same time, when he faces off with the pirates, it's like just because I have droids holding my cape doesn't mean I can't throw down.
Yeah, what's it that he says? He says something to the effect of, "Don't mistake my." Ah, yeah, he says, "Don't mistake my hospitality for weakness." And I was like, "Oh
Yeah,
yeah, here
yeah,
we go." Still a badass, and obviously kick some ass. I mean,
yeah,
the dude is great, and it's one of those great things too, where it's just like, oh, he has like this dark seedy past with the bounty hunting guild, but now he's a guy that's making his town grow and prosper and making it a lot better than it was before, which I think was one of the great things about all three seasons of Mando is you see the progression of Navarro, and Navarro's
yeah.
progression is deeply tied to Greef Karga because it's
Mhm.
all you see it like in Greef's wardrobe. Not only does it reflect like his change as a character and his change as a better person or more affluent person or whatever you want to call it, but it's also reflected in how the town is because the town is also brighter, it's also more colorful, it's also
Yeah.
more affluent. So it's a symbiotic relationship between Navarro and Greef Karga. So I just, it's one of those things where they had the memorial, the statue of IG-11 to
Oh
commemorate
yeah.
the sacrifice that IG-11 did at the end of season
Which was
one of
such
The
a beautiful touch,
Mandalorian.
by the way.
Amazing. But
Yeah.
now I wonder, is the same statue that where well, because now the statue's gone because they rebuilt
Yeah.
IG-11, but is the location where IG-11's memorial
Is that gonna
statue
be
was,
Greef Karga?
is it gonna be a Greef Karga statue now? Tears.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yep. Yep.
So it's a bummer. It's a bummer. It's always sad to lose someone, especially. I mean,
Mhm.
everyone, every loss sucks, but
Yeah, but it's
especially
felt
unexpected
especially
ones.
yeah, it's especially felt not only when it's unexpected, but with somebody like as you were saying, sometimes when your career kind of goes away, it's almost impossible to bring it back. And to
Hmm.
see somebody like Carl Weathers become like successful again after so many years of being kind of forgotten a little bit,
Hmm.
and then you get so excited to have them back and to see how
And keep
it
having them
doesn't
back.
yeah and to see how the this trope of about after you're a certain age, there's no way that you're going to be able to get new characters, get new
Hmm.
work. You're just going to be doing the same thing over and over again, or not get any attention ever again. And Car Weathers shows that it's possible to reinvent your career and without forgetting the past, because
Hmm.
clearly he was making a lot of allusions to characters that he's done before. And I don't know. I think it speaks to potential that Hollywood should have instead of sometimes kind of dismissing actors because they're older or because they're not as popular as they used to be, or
Yeah,
talent is talent.
there's
So,
definitely space for more. And what I'm about to say is not a dig against movies that I especially love, but there is space to bring in older characters as hopeful characters too, because we've seen in Last Jedi and Dial of Destiny and films like it where the old legacy character comes back, but he's jaded and all these things, and they do.
depressed
They do.
and
They do have
yeah.
like the quote unquote come to Jesus moment at the end, but there's space for other stories too, where like those characters can be a little more hopeful since the beginning and
And still
have
be
like the
heroes from the beginning instead of having to go through the I'm
right.
old, I'm depressed, I need to get out of this slump thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was Greef Karga's journey. That was Carl Weathers' journey. I mean, and to not only give the man credit for his acting roles, but also as a director. I mean, let me check. I had this pulled up here, but he not only portrayed Greef Karga, he was also a director in The Mandalorian. Directed a couple episodes. I had it pulled up, and I absolutely
Awesome.
just lost it. Let's bring it back. I'm gonna try to keep talking as I find it.
As you try to
As I
find the
try to find it.
information.
Here we go. So he was director on uh, chapter 12, The Siege, and chapter 20, The Foundling, which awesome episodes, as we already know. So the man is not only like a great talent, he played football and he was younger in college and then became an actor now, director as well. So like multifaceted talent
Yeah.
that, we won't be able to enjoy anymore. Well, actually that's not true. We will keep enjoying him because he's immortal now
Immortalized on film
on
and
film
TV.
forever, forever. So one of the real ones, Carl Weathers, rest in peace. You will be missed. You are like well, a definitely big loss, especially like after Ray Stevenson. It's kind of brings to focus like the how ephemeral moments are and how thankful we have to be of each and every one because one day we'll
Yeah.
go to sleep, we'll take the long nap, and we won't even know it. So give
I
thanks,
know.
tell everyone you love them, give them a hug because you never know, you never know.
And make the most out of every day because, again, like you said, you never know.
Do what you love. There's no
Yeah.
time to do something you hate. Although I guess everyone kind of does that at work. But try not to do it. And if you have to, try to find something good about it. And if you absolutely hate it, find a new job. I know it's easier said than done, but it's yeah. I'm not gonna preach. You know what to do. You're all adults. But yeah, they didn't. It's kind of a bad timing in a way because I would have not that happened. That it coincided with Star Wars podcast day because I think we would have wanted to have a more upbeat
Beat
topic
conversation. Yeah.
to talk about. However, I think a celebration is still upbeat. So it's in a way it's sad because we're talking about someone who's passed, but
Mhm.
we need to just celebrate it. And in a way, I think it's good that it's on Star Wars Podcast Day because then we have a reason to talk about it even more effusively, I guess.
Then I guess we would have otherwise,
Then
probably.
that absolutely, I
Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
absolutely concur with that
Yeah.
statement.
And the reality is that, I mean, not only the joyful moments are part of life.
Hmm.
Sometimes sadder moments, and they make us grow and they make us reminisce. And I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Like Yoda
Yeah.
said in Revenge of the Sith, death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those who have joined the Force. So in that way, we rejoice
Our
for
weathers.
Carl Weathers' life, and we are happy that he is one with the Force now. And I think today instead of signing off with a "May the Force be with you," maybe it's a "May the Force be with you and be peace."
Be peace. Well, is there anything you want to add before we sign off? Because I think that was.
I think that's it, at least for today. Hopefully, there's a tomorrow. Oh yeah,
Oh,
we're
don't get
today.
all pessimistic now. There's
No,
definitely
no, no.
tomorrow.
You never know, but yeah, at least for now we're good.
Well,
Give thanks.
anyway,
We give
thank
thanks
you.
for Carl Weathers.
We give thanks for Call Brothers. We give thanks to you for listening to us.
Hmm.
We give thanks to all the Star Wars podcasts that are out there,
Hmm.
especially the positive ones and the ones that spread joy about Star Wars and
Hmm.
all the
Hmm.
different viewpoints of enjoying Star Wars because not everybody receives media the same. So
Hmm.
we appreciate all of you that are positive and that love the media that we love as well. So please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think about Star Wars Podcast Day, about Carl Weathers, any feelings that you have about his passing. We will miss you. We will see you in the Force when we
Hmm.
get there.
Oh my, yeah,
And
I
until
felt
next
that.
time, May the force be with you and be peace.